Values-based financial planning involves building a retirement plan where you start with identifying what's truly important to you. Peak Wealth Planning is a wealth management firm. We offer two primary services. One is financial planning, the second is investment management. Many approaches to financial planning just focus on the numbers. Here's how much money you have today. Here's how much you can spend. In a values-based process, you might start with a plethora of values you can maybe find in a book or on the internet, 30 different ones. But narrowing it down to five core values is a really good way to then look at those values and translate them into activities, hobbies, how you spend your time down the road. And once you and your spouse maybe have had some conversations about that, or you and your family members, then you can agree on when you make a financial decision. Maybe you have a large windfall, whether it's an inheritance, employee stock plan payout, or you've just built up a large nest egg and you're thinking about retirement. Having these values identified helps you decide how to spend your time. It also helps you decide how to bucket or assign pieces of your wealth and the income stream from your wealth to those different activities. When you create these values, you can also prioritize them. So then maybe the number one priority is maybe you grew up in an unstable household and money was tight. So your number one priority is we can meet all of our basic expenses, safety and security first, and we're going to do that before we do charitable giving. Or we're going to do that before we worry about a vacation home. So the values and visioning piece gives you confidence and clarity in those decision-making pieces around investments and assigning numbers to what's really and truly important to you. A values-based approach can bring a higher degree of satisfaction to people when they leave the workplace. It helps you identify how to spend your time, where to put your energy, and how to expend your sometimes limited resources. In addition to that, you may have greater peace of mind knowing that your will says you're going to support a performing arts center, and you might have wonderful peace of mind knowing that you gave enough money to your adult children while you were still alive and you could help them in their 40s and 50s rather than leaving them a bunch of money because you lived to 100 and they inherited money when they were 65 or 70 and they're beyond a lot of the experiences they could have had in life. So I think that the values-based piece and identifying these different issues, especially when you're across generations, can really help bring satisfaction to both the parents that earn the money and maybe the adult children or even younger children that can benefit from that. And that benefit can be launching in life, shared experiences together, or education. Many families value education. Perhaps you're going to leave a trust fund to educate the next three generations of your family. The benefit of taking a values-based approach that I really believe, having been a wealth manager for 11 years, is sometimes I see people get excited about the latest investment thing. Cryptocurrency is a great example. And I believe that if you really identify your values and what's important, if you have a financial plan and an investment program that aligns with the value of, say, providing income to meet my living expenses and a vacation every year, do I really need to shoot for the stars and invest in something very speculative? Or can I have maybe a little bit more conservative investment plan with tried and true stocks and bonds where I have confidence that everything's going to turn out okay? And I'm not in something where it's a highly volatile market or a private market investment that might be too risky for my family. It's okay to have risk in your portfolio and risk in your investment plan, but that might be the shoot for the moon legacy where you're going to leave $20 million for a college, but that might be something that may or may not occur. But you definitely don't want to put your money that you need for paying your bills for the next 10 years in something super risky. So starting with a values-based piece, we can align the most important things you want to achieve and how you want to spend your time with maybe more conservative investments. And then we can go out on the risk spectrum with maybe the aspirational shoot for the moon type things. The way we implement values-based retirement planning will provide you and your spouse or partner with a list of 20 or 30 core values. You'll each go through and circle the 10 that are most important to you. And then we'll have a meeting and come together and talk through those 10 different values. And then we'll narrow it down to perhaps five or six that are core to your family and to your future. And we really try to align each one of those values with how you might spend your time, how you might connect with others, how you might connect with your community. And then once we understand those connections and that investment of time, then we can help assign investment of funds to each of those pieces. And having the values helps us prioritize as well. The other piece I should mention, this is not done all in one sitting. We might spend a meeting, narrow from 10 down to five values, and then we'll pause. And then maybe in another meeting, we'll write up some core value statements for your family. You can even take those value statements, and we've actually done this where we've delivered plaques to families and they put them on the wall in their house of what their core values are. Perhaps someone values community. And as part of that process, the value statement might be with the wealth we've accumulated, we'd like to support our community and the programs in the community that are important. So when we sit down with the family after their basic needs are met, we'll identify what's left over from maybe their income stream and we'll help them assign where they can donate money to causes they care about in addition to donating their time. Another example, we have a family that identifies spending time in nature as very important to them. And that's not on their own, it's with their loved one. And that family, it was very important to them to have a home out west where they could go and spend time together and go biking and go hiking. So they assigned their productive energy to getting that home and traveling to that home, spending not only their time, but also their money, energy, and effort to spend that time in nature because they like to connect over doing that. It's important to share your vision and values amongst family members so that folks are all going the same direction. And we don't have situations where one spouse is thinking we're going to buy a boat and sail around the world, and another spouse is thinking we're going to buy an apartment in the city and spend time seeing plays and going to the theater. So navigating and negotiating how time will be spent together, or similarly, maybe there's a generational gap and you have an adult child and there's enough wealth where you're thinking about charitable giving, and maybe the parents have one idea of what charitable giving means and what causes are important to them, and the adult children have a different idea. So bringing those parties together, and perhaps maybe some of those meetings occur on their own with the parties, and we might assign some talking points for them to discuss on their own or some writing exercises, or facilitating a meeting once those individual conversations have happened to get people on the same page, or at least identify enough resources to meet the different needs of the family is really important. That way, when you're making financial decisions, when you're making investment decisions, you've tried to hit upon all those different pieces. One piece I've seen in terms of aligning values is perhaps folks' aspirations could outstrip their financial means. And it's important to then prioritize values. For example, safety and security might take priority over extensive travel and experiencing other cultures. And there might be some way you can experience those other cultures, but at a lower cost than traveling around the world for a year and a half on a private jet, for example. So I think sometimes having aspirational values and goals is really good, but sometimes the financial reality means we need to, or the family needs to look at moderating those goals to true experiences that are congruent with what they want to achieve and meaningful, but maybe they're not as consumption oriented as the original plan. The second item I've seen where there's sometimes issues with values-based statements many families value supporting their adult children, helping them launch in life. And the real question is, how far does that support go? For example, should your children live in a multi-million dollar home that they really can't afford and the parents are constantly supporting that? Or is it a one and done? We're going to help you with a down payment. And then after that, as a child, unless there's catastrophic circumstances, you're on your own. So are we doing one-time help or are we engaging in ongoing support? And maybe even parents have different views of that. So reconciling two parents to get them on the same page for that is really important. The other piece is some families will say, we love our children, we're going to help them one time, and that might be we're going to send them to college. But after that, the parents are going to spend on their own. Maybe if the child wants money, they'll loan them money to start a business. But beyond that, the parents are going to give away the rest of the assets. It's really important for families if you're going through these types of decisions and discussions with your financial planner to sit down, especially if we're talking about legacy and estate planning. If the parents value giving back to a college and say starting a scholarship over giving money to their children, they might want to sit down and explain that to their children when they're 35 or 40, so they're not shocked when the parents pass away, for example. One extreme example is I'm very conservative financially. I want to always have $10 million in the bank, even on the day I pass away. Why is that? Maybe I grew up in a really unstable household and I want to know that I can always draw a certain amount of income no matter what. And $10 million is what my financial planner and I have agreed upon, that I can meet all my needs, even if I live to 105 years old. For some people, they'd say, you know what, that's a lot of money to have when I'm 90 years old. I would have preferred to have given away a lot of that money to my adult children or to my community, and I'm okay dying with $100,000. The question becomes is there a risk if you give away too much money early in your retirement and you actually run out of money, or there's some series of events where you live a lot longer than you think you're going to, and you're in an Alzheimer's home, and maybe you want to be in a really nice Alzheimer's home, or your children want to put you in a nice Alzheimer's place, but you wound up in a state-run, not well-run Medicaid home where the conditions are deplorable and you don't really want to be there. So I think there's a contrast of how secure do I want to be today and in the next 3 decades versus what do I value and how much of my hard-earned wealth can I give away or transition before I pass away. And I think there's a balancing act between that. And the values-based pieces of writing down what's important can guide decision making along the way. Subscribe to this channel and visit peakwealthplanning.com.